Throughout history, people have made amazing accomplishments that define themselves. Now, it's our turn to tell those accomplishments, to tell his story, her story, their story, and even your story. With Mike Wexler.
Welcome to Your Story with Mike Wexler. That happens to be me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode. I have a very special guest here. I had the pleasure of meeting him in LA when it comes to violence and suffering in wrestling, but I've seen his work for so many years when it comes to GCW, when it comes to JCW. There's so many promotions that this man has been in that he is doing it at a revolutionary age, only 16 years old and still killing it in the professional wrestling scene. So without further ado, son of Buddy Wayne, this is the one, the only Nick Wayne. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Mike. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. This is take two, by the way, for those who are wondering, because originally we had something, we had an original video, but sadly that had gotten corrupted in a file. So that's on me. I do apologize, but this is round two. We're going to pretend none of that happened. But first and foremost, how's everything? I mean, I know that as of this recording, you have a big weekend coming up when it comes to GCW over in Los Angeles. Like, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, man. February's looking really packed, you know, like 2 to 3 to 4 shows almost every weekend in February, all across the world, or like all across the country, really, you know, a lot of West Coast, a lot of East Coast. I'm going to be on the East Coast a lot this month, which I'm super excited for. And yeah, I'm just looking to keep this momentum going through February, and you know how I am.
Yeah. You got to keep the hype train going, man. That's what you've been doing throughout your career thus far. I do want to start off with a match in your professional wrestling career that really has gotten you on the map when it comes to the independent wrestling scene. And for those who are wondering, I'm talking about his match against the bad boy, Joey Janella, considered one of, honestly, not just by myself, but also by a lot of wrestling fans and a lot of wrestling news sources as well, as one of the, if not best matches of 2021. So, like, can you talk to us about working with Joey Janella?
Yes. So my match I had with Joey Janella was, till this day, my favorite match I've ever had. Just the way the match went, my overall performance in the match. Also a very big match to me because I used to look up to Joey, and I still do look up to Joey as a professional wrestler. So I put a lot of pressure on myself going into it, and like I was ready to go hard. I was ready to put on like match of the night, which turned out to be match of the year for Defy, which is incredible. Yeah, I just put on a lot of pressure into myself. I was a little nervous because I've seen Joey matches a lot in the past, and like I know how he gets, and like he said, even in his promo, he's one of the most reckless and dangerous professional wrestlers out there today, or in the world. So I was just preparing myself, ready for the bad boy, and I succeeded. I came out on top. I came out victorious. One of my favorite match I had till this day, and nothing's beat it so far. So very special moment for me, for sure.
It was definitely a special moment. I mean, I remember the match entirely from start to finish. Even at the finishing moments of the match, Joey Janella grabbed a microphone and literally gave you the biggest props in front of that packed Defy audience. I mean, did you know anything about that? Was that how did that feel, getting those words from Joey Janella?
It felt incredible, to be honest, man. Like I didn't know he was going to grab the microphone. Like I've seen people after matches, like they do the speech or whatever. I didn't know if he was going to give one or not. But once I saw him have the microphone, I was like, oh shoot, here we go. Like, what is he going to say? And he said in his promo that like he gets put with all of these young talent that are coming up in the independent scene. And he said, I was the best young talent he's ever faced, which means a whole lot because he's faced literally everybody. He said on commentary one time in Atlantic City over one of my matches that our match was in his top 10 favorite matches of all time he's ever had.
Oh, wow.
At the end of it, the promo ended with him saying he had my back and everything, and he got in my face saying, "You're the man now. "You're the man," you know. It was so incredible, you know. And he left the ring all to me with all the defiance on their feet. Um, Truly incredible moment for me, you know. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was truly one of the most incredible moments of your career thus far. I remember, for those who are kind of wondering, like, how does Mike know Nick Wayne? I got the pleasure of watching his match. It was a trios match. It was Nick Wayne, Lucas Riley, and Starboy Charlie versus Second Gear Crew over at GCW's Highest in the Room back in September of 2021. And the way that you guys are revolutionizing, excuse me, the wrestling game, especially at an early age, is pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, man. That match you were just now talking about, me, Starboy, and Lucas Riley versus SGC. Um, that match I feel like was something that was like somewhat eye opening to the fans. You know, the ones that were there, the ones that watched on the stream, or like more specifically when the announcement came out for the match. You know, everyone was like, "No way, you're gonna put the young kids with Second Gear Crew?" Like everyone knows
Mhm.
SGC. They're like one of the most wild on the independents, probably the most wild in GCW. But things got rowdy, you know. It became an SGC match. You know, you got the chair shots, you got all of the doors, you know. It all
Oh
got
yeah.
crazy. It all became mayhem, but definitely like a tough test for sure. Like, are you really tough? You know what I'm saying? But no, I feel like that match definitely was like a special attraction to GCW, like the young kids against the most crazy guys in GCW in one match. I feel like that was like an attraction to GCW and the fans.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you look at that match, it was all crazy. Doors were going out of places, and there was there was so much.
Yeah, it was nuts, crazy. Those
So
chair
one other
shots are
thing I
no joke.
oh
Those chair
one other
shots
thing
are
I do want
no
to mention
joke.
one other thing I do want to mention as well is the fact that, like I mentioned before, you're starting you're making waves in your wrestling career at such a young age. Um, Given that you're still in high school, I mean, like you're doing a great job when it comes to managing both high school and getting your, graduating and focusing on your academics while still pursuing your dream.
Yeah, so pretty much like the way how all that works is I try to evenly balance it really well. The teachers at school, as like to them, as long as my grades stay up and I stay good with turning in assignments and whatnot, they're pretty much cool with it. Like sometimes when I travel, I have to take my school laptop with me, and when I get to my destination, I have to open it up and get to doing the assignment or whatever, so I turn it on time or finish up the project that's due that night or something. But I stay very consistent with my work and whatnot, keeping my grades up, so I do get that high school diploma at the end. Um, yeah, school is something that's pretty important to me. But I do end up missing a lot of it, a lot of like Fridays, sometimes Mondays when I come home late from the weekend. But I stay up to date with the assignments and projects and tests and whatnot. So I would say I balance it pretty well for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I give you credit, man. Like you're coming from the West Coast all the way, probably sometimes to the East Coast, and then it's sometimes like, man, this assignment's due at 11:59. I'm like, okay, that's fine over here in West Coast time, but then you're like, wait a minute, that's like that's like a way later
Yeah.
over here in the East Coast.
Yeah, on the East Coast, sometimes like I get freaked out. You know, it has like the 11:59, and I see on the East Coast it's like 11:30, and I start freaking out, and I'm like, oh wait, it's only like 8:30. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it sometimes it'll like even like not last year, but the year before 2020, it was kind of the first time where I'm like, okay, these are time zones. So I kind of had to get used to all these time zones all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So one other thing I do want to mention too is the fact that not only you're just, revolutionizing the game at such a young age as well. Um, like I feel like that there's a lot of people nowadays, especially young people within like the ages like from 13 and up that are like killing it in the professional wrestling game, and it's like still barely starting. I mean, you look at people like Marcus Mathers is someone that I talked to very recently, that's killing it at a young age. We mentioned Starboy Charlie, Lucas Riley. We could even go say this, people like Billy Starks, who's been killing it recently. How do you feel just being a part of that lineage of youngsters? I don't want to say that because I'm 23 now, but just being a part of that lineage of young wrestlers that are killing it at such an early age.
Honestly, it feels very honored to be a part of like that title as like the up and comers into the business, because pretty much one day the business will entirely be in our arms and it's our job to carry it, and right now we're just on the come up, and it's like a lot of people do give us like a lot of credit for being like very talented, and it's like the crazy part is like we haven't even like gotten close to our prime yet,
Mhm.
like that's very mind-blowing to like me especially. But being a part of that title as like a young talent is awesome to me, because a lot of those guys I was watching like on the come up, I'm on the come up right now, so I still watch them till this day. But like being able to like a couple years ago watching them, and then fast forward a few years being a part of them, it's like so
Mhm.
mind blowing. It's like everything just happened in like the blink of an eye. And it's like, wow, dude, like I'm really here. I'm really with these guys that I used to study. It's incredible to me. It's like so honoring.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you're in the ring with legends, you know what I mean? Like you're in with the Chris Dickinsons, you're in with the Joey Janellas, you're in with the Matthew Justices and AJ Grays. Like it's pretty mind blowing that you're doing this, and then people are asking, "How old are you? You're 16, doing all this? Wow!"
Right? Yeah, it's nuts. Yeah, yeah.
So one other thing too was interesting, and this is a part of our previous conversation, which sadly it'll never come on air. But what was interesting was the fact that you started in professional wrestling at such a young age. At I believe it was the age of 12, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
So like imagine that, like having a debut at 12, like that's some pretty legendary moments.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, pretty much like pretty much um my father growing or like me growing up, my father had a wrestling school right outside of our house right here, and like every Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday I'd always go out there and I'd watch all of the students, do their thing every week, getting trained to become a professional wrestler. And I was so mesmerized by it. And when I wasn't watching training out there was some type of wrestling on in the house on the TV. So it felt like everywhere I was there was some type of wrestling somewhere. And
Mhm.
eventually when I got to like 7 or 8 years old, I'd watch those trainings. When they would wrap up and get done, I'd go in the ring and I would do what I saw during that training kind of just on my own. um and then once I turned 9 years old, I told my dad, I was like, all right, I want to like train with them, like I think I can do it. And he was like, all right, let's do it. He got me the elbow pads, got me the knee pads, like we were ready to go. And I started training with everybody else at 9 years old, consistently training until I was 12. I then had my first match in Abbotsford, Canada when I was 12 years old. And now I'm here at 16. I still train consistently every week. I feel like training is something that's like very, very important, especially to stay like very crisp in your work when you
Mhm.
perform in front of live audiences. So I always want to make sure I'm like very crisp and execute everything nicely and properly when in the ring. Um, so yeah, training something very important to me. But yeah, consistently training from 9 years old to 16 now.
Wow, that's just amazing just to see your progress, just to see, like you said, starting at 9 all the way to 16. I mean, I mean, if that's not legendary, I don't know what is.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So one other thing too I do want to talk about is we had this discussion before, and that is just the traveling. I know a lot of wrestlers, have different ways of traveling, different traveling stories, but like you've traveled to so many places in the United States. Of course, you did mention about Canada. What has been your most memorable traveling experience thus far?
Ooh, most memorable traveling experience. Like does favorite destination count?
Sure.
Okay. Favorite place I've been so far. So like I'm a really big like city guy. Like I love
Hmm.
walking around on the streets and like having tons of people around you like gives off energy. And like late at night when you got all these big buildings all lit up everywhere, like a Las Vegas type vibe. But a
Hmm.
place I'm really like happy at and that I really enjoy being at is Atlantic City, New Jersey. I'd say so. Either that or New York City. New York, like
Hmm.
Times Square, the lights are it's just crazy. you know. But Atlantic City, it just got this vibe to it, you know. Usually when we perform at GCW in Atlantic City, it's at the Showboat Hotel, and right outside the Showboat Hotel is the Atlantic City Boardwalk. You have this giant
Mhm.
Ferris wheel and a bunch of hotels all lined up here, a bunch of food places. A lot of people just gives off good vibes and energy. You know, it's awesome. I love it, and thankfully, travel experiences like you were saying earlier, I haven't really had like any bad ones or any crazy things, like nothing that got too hectic or whatnot. Like obviously sometimes like delayed flights or like canceled flights, but nothing that was like super hectic thus far, thankfully. But I
Oh
hope
no,
that
you.
answers the question.
Oh yeah, no, it does. I mean, because you always hear about these crazy travel stories, like you've heard, like, oh, there's these flight delays, as you mentioned before, or maybe even just like, man, like I was supposed to be in New York at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I ended up being there at 1. So,
Oh,
you
I
have
do
those
have.
crazy ones.
I could throw a little something in there before. It's happened to me 2 times before. It's been a super early flight in the morning, and I wouldn't sleep the whole night. Like I do the show, stay up all night until I go to the airport, right? And like I'm like every time, like, oh yeah, I could pull it off. I'll just stay awake till the flight, fall asleep, sleep the whole plane ride, you know? And I pull it off usually like 9 times out of 10, but 2 times before I've fallen asleep in the chair at the gate. And both times I woke up right as the last group was boarding for my flight.
Oh wow.
I was like, oh my gosh. That was very scary. It's happened twice. The last one was like not too long ago. But something
Yeah.
very scary, like definitely wakes me up for sure.
See, I can't do that. Like I'm very much a like very like cautious sleeper. Like if I'm gonna sleep, I know I'm gonna knock out and I'm gonna be late.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so scary.
So one of the other things I do want to mention too is, like 2021 was a huge year when it comes to Nick Wayne. You've had many classic matches. You've been to all these companies, like we mentioned before about GCW. You've been to VXS, and you've gotten to collaborate with all these people in so little time. What has 2021 taught you as a person?
Um 2021 taught me as a person. Um just take in every moment you can.
Mm,
Honestly, like people tell me all the time, like, just take it in, you know? And there's a lot of times where like you really do take it in and you're like, wow, I'm really here. You know, and like for me, especially because like at 16, when I turned 16 last July, I wasn't traveling or anything. I went to like Las Vegas. It was like one place I've ever been outside of the Pacific Northwest, which is my area. Um,
mm.
I had no idea that a month later I would be traveling around the country. So it was like taking in those moments for me, especially. It's like when I'm standing in the middle of a ring in front of like 1,000+ people and they're all chanting my name or whatever. It's like, wow, I'm really here, you know, at like such a young age. Like I would have never ever expected it. But people tell me all the time, like, just take it in, bro. Like they're like, when you're out there, just take it in. And like it's one of the best pieces of advice I've ever got because it's really true. You're out there, you're taking in every moment, and it just feels like so surreal. You know, it's incredible. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, I mean the roar of the crowd. That's something that really gets a lot of people. As a broadcaster, that's kind of a saying that I've, kind of gone through as a motivation. Just like, it's the roar of the crowd
Yes.
that kind of keeps you going. But even I see professional wrestlers. I mean, whether it's in front of no crowd or even if it's in front of a million people, like the way that they just feed off the energy inside that arena, bingo hall or whatever, it's truly something special.
It really is. I agree. And I'm definitely the type where I feed off of the crowd's energy as well. Um, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps my adrenaline bar all the way up to 10, you know? So I definitely feel that feeling off the energy of the crowd for sure. 1,000%.
And speaking about energy of the crowd, I do want to transition to something that, again, we discussed, but it will never air, sadly. And that is just how much of an impact Buddy Wayne put on, you as his son. So, for those who don't know, again, Nick Wayne is the son of Buddy Wayne, professional wrestler. And what was amazing is that how much of an impact he had on, your professional wrestling career, but also your life. So can you talk to us about like, like how much of an impact and an influence he had on your life?
I can, yes. So my father all my life, um, like I said earlier, had the wrestling school up since I was a little baby. Um, Me always consistently being around wrestling, and like I have these memories. Um, Towards the last couple of years before he passed away, he unfortunately passed away a few years ago when I was 11 years old. I have these memories where like I'd be so small. He would sit on a recliner chair and I was small enough to fit on the arm of the chair, and I'd watch on a computer with him. I'd watch Lucha Libre like AAA or CMLL. And he's the reason why I fell in love with wrestling, and he taught me everything I know today. He's the one who trained me to become a professional wrestler. And when I was 11 at the time, I never had a match before, at least in front of a crowd. And once he passed away, I felt so lost. I was like, what am I going to do? Like I no longer have a father figure for the rest of my life. And my trainer is now gone. I was like so lost. I was like, what do I do? And then it was crazy actually, because 2 months after he passed away is when I had my first match. Um, so unfortunately, he never got to see me live have a first match, but I know every time I step in the ring, he's up above there with me, you know? So I give him credit for everything I know today. Um, Everything I do in the ring today, I give credit to him. Um, yeah, my whole love for professional wrestling, I all fell in love with it because of him. He's the reason I do this sport. I do the sport because I want to continue his legacy in the last name Wayne. So I give him credit for everything I know today.
Yeah, he's looking down on you, man, and he is absolutely proud of the accomplishments that you've had thus far and the journey that you're going through now. So he's definitely looking down. He's like, "That's my son."
Thank you so much, bro. For real, thank you.
Yeah, of course, man. I mean, you got to look at it too. I mean, it's inspiration and motivation. You know what I mean? Like, of course, if I could give it the example too of like my grandfather passed away when I was 16 years old, and so that although he's not physically here, he's always up here. He's always in here. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yes,
always with us still, but you know what I mean? Like his spirit is still there. Like he's still there, giving us that
always.
motivation, giving us that what we need to continue our journey.
For sure. I agree with you. I feel it all the time.
So one other thing I do like, when it comes to Nick Wayne, I mean, you talk about, the journey from high school to wrestling. You talk about the passion and love that you have for professional wrestling. Given that you're still on your professional wrestling journey, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever the case may be, what's the goal for Nick Wayne? Like where do you expect to see yourself within year or years from
Oh man. Um, One of the main goals for sure is to be one of the best or the best in the world one day. Um, but I think destination wise, I feel like the style I wrestle right now, um, when the time is right, I think all elite wrestling would be a very, very nice fit for me, I
Ooh.
would say. And then probably once I become older and my style starts to slow down and I start to tell those longer, stretched out storytelling matches, I think I'd be good to transition into New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think
Mm.
if I could say, I think that would say where I could go. I think that would be the track. That's just right now. The answer will probably change in about 6 months from now, but as of right now, that's what I'm pretty set on. Yeah.
Hey, we cannot wait to see where Nick Wayne goes next. I'm excited for your journey, man. I'm really happy to see where you're going, with thus far and where you're going to go in the future.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that.
So, before I get into the final question, I do want to thank Nick Wayne for being on the podcast and taking the time out of his busy schedule to doing part two, even though technically this is still
Yes.
one, two.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you taking the time. Don't forget to follow Nick Wayne on all social medias, which I believe it is at _Nick Wayne on Twitter.
Yes.
And on Instagram, I believe it's just at the Nick Wayne.
Yep.
I got it on the first try. Let's go. but no, but seriously, go follow him. Go follow his journey. So with all that said, Nick, I always end these podcasts with kind of like, it's not the typical podcast question, but it's really something to like that really impacts this podcast. And that is, after everything that you've done thus far and stuff that you're going to do still in the future, 5-10 years from now, is Nick Wayne proud of his story?
Very much so. Yes. I think just from like right now, from training from 9 years old to wrestling on these big shows at 16, that's just like a 7-year long stretch. Just in those 7 years, I feel like I have a very a special and heart-touching story. From not knowing I was going to be on these top shows on the independents a month before doing it to then doing it every weekend. From what I said earlier, at 11 years old, losing my trainer and my father at 11 years old, still being a child, I feel like it's all like such a special story, and the goal is hopefully when I'm around like 30, maybe a little bit past 30, is I can write a book about my entire experience in professional wrestling so far. I feel like it's like by then especially, it'll be like a very great story that could fill out an entire book that I'll publish out to the world. And that's the goal for sure. But yes, to answer your question, I'm proud of what I've done so far. My goal is to just keep this momentum going throughout the years, throughout 2022, 2023 and on, so yeah.
Hey man, that was awesome, man. I do thank you so much for taking your time, giving this a part 2, even though this is again a take 2. But I know I really enjoyed the conversation. So thank you so much, Nick. And I gotta do this outro thing because apparently I have to do outros in these videos. But if you are watching this on YouTube, I do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that notification so you never miss an episode. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you can get your podcast, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and never miss an episode. But thank you so much, Nick. And for those who are watching, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I will see you guys in the next episode of Your Story.
Love y'all.